Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show, ladies and gentlemen. Don't touch that remote. Listen, all you aunts and uncles and mamas and papas and your gummadas and your gumbadis, listen, pay attention now, because it has to do with our youth, the youth of today. You know, we will talk about all the problems, the children are doing this and children are doing that, but let's look at it in the eyes of a district attorney that gets the reports from the police department that makes an investigation. And then it's up to the district attorney, the probation, to come up with what's best for this child, juvenile. And then the judge has to either send him home, send him to an institution, probation, whatever it may be. So it's so important today. And a lot of people really don't know their kids' problems. There's different programs to help children to stay out of trouble, and there's programs that when you get in trouble, they got programs to straighten you out. So, my guest today is from the district attorney's office, and she is in charge of district attorneys. They have a certain division that district attorneys set up with the different departments. And this department is juvenile, very important in this day and age. So, I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell us something about herself. So tell me what your name is and what's your title.
Good morning. It's very nice to be here. My name is Sharon Jampercaro. I'm one of the deputy district attorneys in the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, and I'm also
the district attorney, Risa Furman.
Risa is my boss, wonderful leader.
Right, yes, she's my friend. I called, she said she'd send somebody over here that's very important.
And I'm also the chief of the juvenile division. I've been in the DA's office 21 years.
21? Oh, yeah. My God. 21, now you can drink liquor.
That's right.
You're 21.
I started out prosecuting adult offenders in the major crimes.
Well, let me tell you, what schooling, what kind of schooling did you get?
Undergraduate, University of Pennsylvania for nursing. I'm a registered nurse.
Oh, no kidding.
So, yeah, I've done pediatrics and geriatrics, worked at Children's Hospital, and then law school is...
If they get beaten up, you can straighten them up, you can fix them up as a nurse, right?
That's right, they two go well together. And then law school is Villanova Law School.
What law school?
Villanova.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Good law school.
Penn undergrad.
So you didn't have to travel far away, right?
No, I'm a Lower Merion Township resident.
How about your family? You have your...
My family, my husband's name is Frank Flick. I have twin boys.
Name Frank?
Frank Flick.
Good name.
Yeah.
Good. My name's Frank. They call me Hank. They call me Rock. They call me this. You know, I got a million names. So what's he do?
Frank is a criminal defense attorney. He works in Norristown. He's also a part-time public defender.
Oh, yeah? Oh, so he's a public defender, and you put them in and he takes them out.
Right. We don't exactly take the same cases. That would be a bit of a conflict, but...
I had the chief of public defender's department here. She's very good, new lady.
Oh, wonderful lady.
Yeah,
Kira Bradford Gray. And I have twin boys. They're 23 years old.
Wow.
My father was a doctor in South Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Salvatore Jampercaro.
Still
He
around?
lives with me. He passed 6 weeks ago,
Oh,
but at the age of 90, so I was very blessed to have him that long.
Yeah. What part of South Philly?
He was around Broad and Mifflin.
Mifflin, oh yeah, it's real South Philly.
Yeah.
Right. Down there.
St. Agnes Hospital.
Yeah, and so, juvenile. The juvenile division. All right, now, let's break it down. That when a juvenile commits a juvenile act, an adult commits a crime. Is that right? So we break it down. There's a difference. Tell us a little bit of a difference between them.
Well, a criminal offense in juvenile law is called a delinquent act. And in the adult world, it's called a crime. But they're both criminal offenses. So the juvenile jurisdiction is any child under the age of 18 that commits what would otherwise be an act in our crimes code would be under the juvenile court jurisdiction if they're convicted. And our exposure, in other words, the juvenile court jurisdiction is until their 21st birthday. So 21st birthday. Okay. As long as the crime or the offense has been committed before they turned 18 years of age.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you do, as a district attorney, prosecutor, you look for what's best, right? And you work along with whoever the attorney is, right? But to look for a fair trial, make sure that he did commit the offense, right?
Well, that is
Right.
my definition of a prosecutorial role anyway, as being a minister of justice. We're always looking for the fairness and the justice in all dispositions. In juvenile court, unlike adult court, they're looking at accountability for the juvenile, the rehabilitation piece. They're also looking at protection for the community and for the victim also in these cases, and ways to make the juvenile lead productive lives, intervention measures.
Right, right.
So it's a trifold system.
All right, and then you have some programs that work out. Tell me some of the programs you have within the district attorney's office.
Within the district attorney's office, or those programs, the ones in the district attorney's office that are geared toward kids are crime prevention programs. There is a voluminous community outreach by Risa Vetri Furman. And those programs involve youth diversion programs, for instance, a youth aid panel. They involve programs to educate the public and raise awareness on bullying. There are a number of task forces. There's a number of school safety programs going on, and they all interrelate to what goes on in juvenile court. And they're directed to keeping kids safe as a general rule.
All right, tell me the procedure now. From the time the kid gets picked up by the police, what happens? They have to sign a petition. Isn't like adult. You just lock them up and.
No, it's very different than adult court. One of the major differences in adult court is in juvenile court there are time limitations. When a juvenile is taken into custody, there is only 72 hours before that juvenile would be brought before a judge on a detention hearing. Juvenile court judge to determine probable cause, whether there is probable cause for the offense and whether the juvenile should be detained. And if the juvenile is detained under the Juvenile Act, we have 10 days in which to go to a full-blown trial. So unlike the adult court, even if the offense is...
Adult court, 188 days, was that, what was it?
Yeah, depending on whether or not the adult is incarcerated, there's several months, 6 months or longer than that if they're not. But in juvenile court, if they're in the youth center, there are only 10 days regardless of the nature of the offense. So homicide by vehicles, for instance, even though those cases sometimes can be quite complicated, the Commonwealth must proceed to a full-blown trial within that 10-day period. And if the juvenile is convicted and again detained, the Act then provides that we have 20 days to proceed to a full-blown disposition, which is the same thing as a sentencing in adult court.
Whatever it may be.
Exactly.
If he's going to be sent home or he's going to be, what institution?
Well, there's a myriad of possibilities that could happen to juveniles in today's day and age.
Like what?
Well,
I'm going to hit you like a district attorney. I'm going to start asking you questions.
Aside from just a straight probation where there are a number of conditions, there's all sorts of alternative programs because the idea is a placement, you want to choose the least restrictive placement for a juvenile offender. And there are supervision programs that we can send to the juvenile. We can give them counseling. We can give any sort of programs varying in length, whether they're weekend programs, a month program, 90 days, or longer than that. And it could be foster homes or part placements. Some of our programs are so specialized that they're just geared toward sexual offenders, for instance, or they're just geared toward juveniles who have problems with setting fires. They're very specialized. Some are mental health placements that are strictly with psychiatrists on staff and psychologists giving the child key mental health treatment while at the same time dealing with the behavioral aspects of the crime, the underlying offense that was committed.
When a police officer makes a report, and that's a referral, he refers that to juvenile court. He sends that to the district, he sends that to the probation, right?
That's correct, if he's not taking them into custody.
Does they dispose of that at the probation level without going into court?
Yes, they can, and that is done with the district attorney, my
You
written
gotta prove it?
approval. I go every week and sign off on their files.
But if you see something that should go that way...
Correct. Then that case would get referred to court. At the intake level, which is the juvenile probation department, when an officer arrests a juvenile, if they're not taken into custody, he would send that paperwork into the juvenile probation department. And at that point, when they receive it, they'll hold an intake hearing. and bring the juvenile and his or her
An intake.
guardian.
All right, tell me that about the intake now. I'm trying to educate people to know in case your niece or nephew or son or daughter gets in some kind of problem. You say, oh, don't panic. You know, don't go running, spend a lot of money for a lawyer. Check first, see what the situation is, right?
Correct.
Right. And the district attorney is actually helping you, is helping the child. Okay. Then, if it's a serious case, then you have to get a lawyer naturally. Okay. So tell me what the story there. And then you have a public defender comes in, right?
Right.
But
Well,
you have to qualify.
Well, with respect to the intake
Like
process,
Donald Trump's kid get in trouble, he can't get a public defender, can he? No.
well, probably not, but they'll inquire on that. With respect to the intake process, anytime a juvenile is arrested, I always recommend legal representation. That is,
Yeah.
but in the intake process, what happens is a juvenile probation officer sits down with the juvenile and his or her guardian or parent and discusses the nature of that incident, looks into their background, talks about where the juvenile's position is on that, and then that probation officer will make a recommendation for the case to either stay at the intake level or get referred to court through a plea day. If it stays at the intake level, there are two options that the probation officer may recommend. They may recommend an informal adjustment, and that is essentially a sort of non-supervisory probation.
But you oversee, the district attorney's office oversees every case that's referred from the police department, right?
I go once a week and I take a look at their recommendations in their files to determine, because we don't want every juvenile coming to court. There are a number of serious cases, and it would just clog up the system.
And sometimes the police can settle it on the police level too, right?
Absolutely.
They have
the police have the authority to do a reprimand and release, and absolutely the police may do that, and they're exercising their discretion on whether they're even charging, depending on the evidence and the facts in the case. And the other option at the intake level is a consent decree, which actually requires the district attorney's signature in order for a juvenile to be put on a consent decree. And that's the same.
Wait a minute, this consent decree.
Consent decree. And
What's that mean?
It is essentially a 6-month probationary period, the same conditions a juvenile would otherwise have if he or she were placed on probation.
That's almost the same as an adult court they have. What do they call that?
ARD, is that what you're referring to? Accelerated Rehabilitation?
Don't get no trouble.
It's a little bit different, but the same sort of theory. It's a diversionary tool so that the juveniles can actually have a consent decree at the intake level or in court. That option is available for them either way.
You know, when I was a juvenile officer in Norristown, I'm going back now. When I first started as juvenile, they had juvenile court. A judge would, in the court, every Thursday, the judge would hear the cases, you know, and the probation officer handled everything. Well, when I became a juvenile officer, they sent me to Penn State and they found out that juveniles were not allowed to be held in adult jails. And the probation officer at that time, you say, I don't want him up here. Lock him up and bring him up in the morning, because at 4 o'clock he would go home, and he would live there. And we locked horns many times, you know. So things change now, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And the youth center that we have in Montgomery County
I got something in my throat, and I don't know what the story. Go ahead.
The youth center we have in Montgomery County is really remarkable. It's packed with just dedicated workers. I'm on the board of the board of managers for the youth center, and so I'm very familiar with
keep your eye
what goes
on it,
on
right?
there.
Yeah.
Well,
you got to be careful. The probation officers don't overstep his boundaries without, you know. And then another thing, I always thought that the probation officer should go to the kid's house. And I was concerned that they used to go to the school. I don't think that it was right for the probation to go to the school, because everybody knows the kid's on probation. There's nothing to make a hero out of them, you know?
Well, the juvenile probation officers do go to the juvenile's house. But in today's day and age, there are many schools that have juvenile probation officers assigned to the school environment, which is really wonderful for the kids.
It was unheard of for police officers to be in the school. When I was there, they didn't want policemen coming to school in uniform. That we used to go there in plain clothes. Now they got policemen assigned there in uniform, you know.
They have a school.
Things change, you know. And but are things worse today than they were years ago?
In what respect?
Well, I don't know. Years ago they used to steal the hubcaps. Now they steal the whole car. Right? So,
Well, I would say that we're living in a different era today.
Yeah.
And because of the nationwide fear of violence, the school safety issue, even when you have offenses in today's day and age, when a student says, I'm going to bring a gun to school, for instance, 20 years ago, those sort of
I know,
offenses were
I had
dealt
kids who
so
brought
much
guns to
differently
school.
than they are today.
I settled it, you know.
So there's a big onus on taking that case and really dealing with it seriously, getting psychological evaluations, psychiatric evaluations, and making sure that the juvenile is safe from him or herself and that the community is safe.
Yeah.
So
That was, today, there was a thing, the kid took a gun to school, Bishop Kendrick, I remember, and he said he was gonna shoot one of the teachers, you know. Well, I got a tip that he had it, and we got it and all, but that today, that would have been, oh my God, you know. But we handled it, took care of it. The kid had a problem, so, you know, took care of it.
most of these
referred him.
juveniles do, in terms of the really serious offense. There's a lot of mental health issues in juvenile court, and these kids
That's
need
another
treatment
thing.
quickly.
I had problems, I'm talking about the old days, right? The probation, if the kid was mental and delinquent, there was no place for him. The probation would say, this guy's mental, I can't handle it, I can take care of the juvenile. Then we'd send him to the section, whatever, in the state hospital, they had a section there. They says, oh, this is kid delinquent, we take care of the mental. So the combination, nobody wanted them. So what do you do in a case like that now?
Well, in today, we're very lucky in Montgomery County. It's a complete holistic approach. Every juvenile that comes in, regardless of the offense, is looked at in terms of their mental health issues and needs. And if they have that, you have a multidisciplinary people in the courtroom. There's people from behavioral health. There's Office of Children and Youth. And every week we have mental health review hearings to determine how we can get these kids that are in the youth center to treatment as quick as possible.
Right.
What placements would address their
You do
needs?
that. The kid has a drug problem, mental problem, or anything, you got specialized shoot in there.
And it involves the public defender, the district attorney, mental health behavioral, OCY. All the disciplines come together to work on a plan that
And
would
the
best be suited.
adult has Judge O'Neill drugs, special drug problem. He takes care of
Yes,
that.
drug court.
Joe Smythe has to do with mental. The guy has a mental problem, right? They can handle it. You know, before it would be, you know, just put him in jail, mental, you know, criminal and everything else. So there is now separation helping out more and more, right?
Yeah, and a lot more mental health intervention and awareness. There's so many initiatives going on around the county that help juvenile. We have a children's roundtable that the Office of Children and Youth runs, and Judge...
Round table.
Yeah, it's called a round
Who
table.
sits at that round table?
There's actually about 50 different individuals from all the areas, law enforcement, school staff and personnel. You have mental health, behavioral health. You have parents, community
what do they come up with?
volunteers. They meet monthly, and they address all issues. They address bullying, cyberbullying, truancy, gang violence, mental health, how to get services that are in the community to these kids at school.
In other words, but I don't think you're getting the message out to a lot of people. I think that's important to get that message to people. Let people, you know, an informed nation is a peaceful nation. So to be informed, to let know what's available, you know. I remember the lady would bring, my son is a problem now. I don't know what to do with him, you know, ever since my husband died, you know, and you don't hear a voice, man's voice scare him, do something, you know. Well, it was a problem. So you have to have an agency now. Thank God we have them. We didn't have them things before.
Well, that's one of the landmark.
Right. I'm going to finish this show, even though I keep joking, whatever. And we're going to finish the show. Go ahead.
One thing that our district attorney, Risa Vetri-Furman, is known for and has done, in my own opinion, better than anyone in the state, is this vast community outreach.
Yes.
And a lot of it is education. Our assistant district attorneys are dispatched every month all over this county to do trainings on all kinds of topics: prescription drug awareness, teen driving, bullying, internet safety, juvenile justice, criminal law. I could go on and on. There's trainings for students, for parents, for school staff, community members. And there is a lot more awareness, public awareness on how to keep citizens safe.
I remember when I first started head of the juvenile division in Norristown, and finally nobody really, I wrote a manual for our police department, all the procedures, whether it would be curfew, whatever. Then I had my reports on all the different types of crime, you know, how many repeaters and stuff. So we kept curfew. How about curfew?
Well, curfew is a summary offense that goes through our
handle that-
Youth
they
Aid
handle that
Panel
within.
program. Our Youth Aid Panel program is a youth diversionary program. It comprises 21 school districts and 50 police departments. And essentially, it is for juveniles who commit first-time minor offenses. We have volunteers. We have about 400 volunteers have gone through the program. They're given a 2-week training. And the juvenile comes before a panel of adults, sometimes 3 or 5 adults, and they supervise this juvenile's activity, and they give them constructive activities for accountability, such as community service, paying restitution, reaching out to the community, doing research, writing papers, whatever they can do to have the juvenile compensate for that offense and make a connection to the community. We've had about 6,000 juveniles or over that go through the Youth Aid Panel program. Very successful results. We have approximately a 97% successful completion rate and only about a 6% recidivism rate, meaning that these juveniles that have gone through have not come into the system and
remember,
reoffended.
all sunshine makes desert. You're going to have the rain, the snow, and the hail. Can't be sunny all the time. They can't be everything's not perfect. But curfew is handled most likely with
through the Youth Aid Panel. Yes, we see a lot of that. And the Youth Aid Panel takes on summary offenses and minor misdemeanor first-time offenses, not just the summaries.
Now, all this background, I think that a person like you that works with families, children, the law, what's right, what's wrong, where to go, who goes where, what, you have the training, I think, more. And I know that Judge Smythe worked juvenile. He loved to work juvenile.
He was wonderful,
right.
just wonderful in juvenile court.
He was a Bishop Kendrick guy, you know. And he had to come to City Hall when I was a policeman one time. He had a fist fight with another guy. We straightened it out with his mom and dad and all. So when I was a county detective, he walked in. He says, "You remember me, Hank?" I says, "No." He says, "I had to come to your office when I was." But he's great, you know. And I think a person like you is perfect background training for a judge. Now, do you have aspirations? Is that a big word? I don't use big words. Being a judge?
I do. I just received the endorsement from the Republican Party, so I'll be running for Judge of the Court of Common Pleas.
When's that run?
And, well, the primaries will be on May 21st, and then the general election in November.
Oh, you're going to be at the primary?
I'm running, yes, as one of the
Got
endorsed
candidates.
candidates.
You running against anybody?
Well,
I don't want to know their name.
There are 2 seats open, so the Republican Party endorsed 2 candidates, and then the Democrat Party will endorse 2.
Okay.
And in total, I've been practicing law about 25 years. I'm also a registered nurse, though. Which,
so you got all the ingredients, right? Well, you know,
7 years in nursing. I've done pediatrics at Children's Hospital and geriatrics with the St. Joseph Villa for the retired nuns. So that brings...
What's that?
I worked in geriatric nursing for the past 5 years on weekends, past 4 years on weekends.
Where's that at?
It's in Flowertown at the St. Joseph Villa for retired nuns.
Yeah, no, my brother has a place over at Cisco's little bar.
Yes.
Hoagies.
I know where that is. My husband happens to really like that place.
They say hoagies and cheesesteaks. Cisco's in Flowertown. You see my picture on the wall there, you know, boxing and all, you know.
It's a cute place.
Listen, lots of luck on that, and
thank you.
I'd like to see you become a judge. I think you have the I like it because my background in police work and working with juveniles, it gives me an opportunity to talk to different people. Like when I have doctors, lawyers, police officers, chiefs, and everything, I can talk their lingo, you know. And I don't know what's wrong. My nose keeps running like this, but I'm not running for office. My nose is running for something. But okay, now I remember what classic case can you tell me about that turned you around as far as looking at a case and saying, wait a minute, this is not, don't look right to me. It was sent in and you had to turn it around, that maybe police or somebody made a mistake or false, whatever, not false purposely, but tell me.
Well, you know, I think that every
Look
prosecutor.
at to see that, make sure that this isn't something.
Yeah, every prosecutor, yes, has to look at all cases to determine whether or not only that you have the facts and the evidence, but that what you have is really in your own heart for putting forth the truth. And every now and then, I think a prosecutor will come across a case where there is a question. And certainly in my 21 years at the prosecutor's office, there have been a couple of cases where I've had questions. And when that occurs, you have to have a meeting with the victim, with the witnesses, and really dig deep to determine whether or not the case should have been charged and whether you should be moving forward. And I've certainly have had to make decisions in the past that may not have been popular, but they were the right decisions because they were doing the right thing for the right reason. And that's the prosecutorial role in being a minister of justice and taking a really good look at every case.
Yeah, I remember Philadelphia Police. I used to work with Philadelphia Police juvenile guys, and one time they get a kid at night, at curfew. What are you doing out at night? Before he could even answer, he start writing him up. He says, I hate to be home alone.
Oh.
That's why he was out, see? Well, the half hour is over, and I'm going to finish this case. Excuse me. I don't know whether it's this way or that way, but I want to thank everybody for listening to our, information we're throwing out there. And any questions, call the district attorney's office and ask for the juvenile, and tell them your name again.
Sharon Jamper-Caro, Chief of the Juvenile Division and Deputy District Attorney.
I want to thank you for coming on, and I'm going to find out what this what's in my throat and whatever. Okay.
Thank
salute.
you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for allowing us to come in. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you very much.